Thank you, Amanda. And hello to everyone out there, wherever you are. It's nice to join Maria and Samir. Those are great stories. And it's nice to be a part of House of Speakeasy and to be here on this digital stage, which feels a lot like my apartment. I was going to say that it's an advantage for us to do virtual readings because we don't have to worry about a place where we have to buy a 2-drink minimum. However, in my experience of the pandemic, it's going to take a lot more than 2 drinks to get through this coronavirus period. So I look forward to a time when we can all be back together doing readings in person and only having to worry about a 2-drink minimum. As Amanda said, I am a cartoonist for the New Yorker magazine, and it was kind of a dream job or dream profession for me because all I did when I was a kid was just draw, draw, draw all day long. And so being a cartoonist for that magazine was not only a dream come true, but I also have as Amanda said, a middle grade book which just came out today called Elvin Link, Please Report to the Principal's Office. And I wanted to introduce you to it by way of a story of something that happened to me when I was in 7th grade. So I went to a middle school in a nice suburban Massachusetts town, and I had this Spanish class that had about 35 or 40 people in it. And one day we went into class and we saw that instead of our regular teacher, Spanish teacher, we had a substitute teacher. Now, if anyone has any of the inner child and still left in you, you might hear the word substitute teacher and your eyes might light up, because as a kid, when you saw that there was a substitute teacher, you knew that was basically an excuse to behave badly. A sub was not going to report you to the principal's office because they didn't want to communicate to the school that it was going badly, so they would probably tolerate a lot of bad behavior, and you might not ever see this teacher again, so you felt a lot less accountable about your bad behavior as a kid. So it was kind of an ugly situation. And this one day, we decided to gaslight our substitute teacher and tell her that we didn't have assigned seats, which we did. We had to sit in the same desk every day, but we told her, no, we can sit wherever we want. So I sat next to one of my friends who was also kind of a doodle buddy of mine. So the substitute teacher went through the lessons pretty fast, as substitute teachers often do. And she gave us our homework assignment with about 20 minutes left in the class. And she said, why don't you just spend the remaining 20 minutes doing your homework? So she passed out the homework. It was a sheet of paper with some sentences written in it in Spanish with some blanks that you had to fill in. And I loved Spanish. I was good at languages. I thought the homework was pretty easy. So instead of actually starting the homework, I knew I could finish it quickly at home. I started to draw on my paper, which I often did. So I drew these kind of monsters and aliens coming into the page from the top and the sides, and then these armies of humans that were fighting them off with grenades and laser beams and force fields and whatever other things enter a 7th grader's imagination. And my friend also did the same thing on his sheet of paper. He started drawing this kind of epic monster and alien and human army battle on his page. And then we started swapping pages. So I took his paper and I drew some King Kong gorilla coming in from the side and handed it back to him, and he would draw how they fought that off, and then he would do the same thing to me. He grabbed my paper, drew some kind of epic scene on it, passed it back to me. I drew a response. So in every way, it was epic and it was really fun. So we went home, came back the next day, turned in our papers, and then we got our grades back a few days later. But the comments at the top of the page were radically different for my friend and myself. For me, the grade said A-. But she said about the drawing, she said, so clever and creative. So I'm going to give you extra credit and bump your grade up from A- to an A+. But my friend did not do his homework. And to be fair, I had really good parents. They encouraged me to study and to do well. He had kind of a challenging home life. It wouldn't be surprising that he just took his page after class and shoved it in his backpack and never took it out at home. So he didn't do his homework. He got a D. But he didn't get the extra credit for the creativity. I mean, the teacher should have bumped up his grade from a D to a C and said, so clever, so creative, I loved it. But she didn't. And we both realized innately that that wasn't fair. That was a real mixed message that the teacher was giving us, because either we were both being creative together or we were both being destructive together. The only difference, I mean, the difference between us was the fact that I did my homework and he didn't, but the creativity part was the same. And I shouldn't have been given extra credit for being creative just because I did my homework, because he was actually just as creative. So not only was it a mixed message, but the teacher wasn't there yet in terms of being able to articulate what that line is between creativity and destruction. And she wasn't there yet because I think as adults, we're not there yet. We still don't understand where we are on that spectrum and that continuum. And to use another example that's close to home, I live in Williamsburg and Brooklyn, which is home to some of the greatest graffiti / street art in America, if not the world. And I feel like every building has some form of spray paint art on it, and most of it is great. But it's kind of this age-old cliche that you walk out of your apartment and walk by either your apartment building or some office building, and you see that there's some artwork on it that wasn't there the day before. And then you ask yourself, is this art or is it vandalism? And oftentimes we don't know the answer to it. And it's highly subjective the way that we figure it out, because if we find out that it's some dude from the neighborhood who's just kind of hanging out, then we judge that person and say it's a vandal, it should be taken down. But then if we find out that it's Banksy or Shepard Fairey or somebody famous, all of a sudden now we have to protect the building and put up a fence around it and put a wall and let's charge money. So again, that line between creativity and destruction is kind of fuzzy in our mind, and it feels like our moral boundaries can be bought. So in my kids' book, going back to that, I wanted to write a story about a boy who was kind of living in that mixed message territory. And the main character in my book, Elvin Link, he's like me in a way. He just likes to draw all day long, but he doesn't draw on paper. He draws all over everything. He draws on walls, and he draws on lockers, and he draws on lunch trays, and he draws on bathroom stalls and on school desks. In the opening scene of the book, he converts a desk into a spaceship by drawing on it with markers. And he poses the question, what kid wouldn't want to sit at the cockpit of a spaceship instead of his boring old school desk? And he's right. What kid wouldn't get excited about going to school if they could sit at a spaceship and not a desk? And the adults know that it's cool too, but they also tell him that he's not supposed to do it. So he's kind of living in this mixed message society where he enjoys taking a marker to everything that he sees and he's making everything cooler, and he's making it more interesting and more beautiful, but the world is telling him that he can't do it. And so the story kind of starts there, and it proceeds as it's a very middle grade in the way that the story plays out, with Frisbees and wedgies and nachos and lots of other middle grade things. And the topic of the show, Are We There Yet?, is relevant to me in my own development as a writer, because I'm not a writer. I came to this as a cartoonist. And previously to writing this book, I would have told people that I was a writer, because a cartoon is a little narrative. If you think about your favorite New Yorker cartoon or other cartoon, they all have characters, whether they are people or animals or inanimate objects. They take place in a setting or a context. There is a plot, even though the plot only takes 1 second to understand. And a good cartoonist can actually make really complex plots if they give you the visual cues to be able to understand them. But writing a story is a lot different than composing a cartoon. What I learned that a cartoon is basically a joke that happens to have characters in it, but writing a novel is writing a character story that just happens to have jokes in it. And if you think about I don't know which of you have participated in the caption contest that's in the back of the New Yorker magazine. To look at an image and then write a caption for that image that's relevant and funny is really hard. It's hard for me even. But what's harder than that is then writing the caption that comes after that, what a character might respond to the caption. And then what happens in the caption after that, and then the scene after that, and then the scene after that. That's a story. And I was so used to just writing the one caption and then being done with it and creating another cartoon. Actually tackling a story that had consistent characters throughout was terrifying to me. But I have a really great agent and a really great editor who were not only patient with me, but also kind of kicked me down the road until I got it. And so I'm really happy with the book, and I hope that if you have a young reader, that you'll encourage them to pick it up. And also, hey, we have a lot more time on our hands because we're spending a lot of time indoors these days. So it would only take you an hour to knock down this book as an adult too.